This is installment 1 of Opportunity Economy. Opportunity Economy is a message that I have been working on and building on and sweating for and bleeding for and sacrificing for about 4 years now. I essentially wrote a book called Opportunity Economy, and now I need to try to get this message out. So my job is to share the message, and your job is to decide if it's the right message, and if so, am I the right messenger? Maybe not. I wrote a book about economics. I'm not an economist. I only graduated high school. I'm not an academic. But I care. When I say I bled for this message, at the very beginning of it, I was so compelled, I didn't sleep for about 4 or 5 nights. And at the end of that, I basically had this psychotic break and ended up in a locked hospital for about 3 weeks. So this matters to me. And because it matters to me, credibility, integrity, those things matter a great deal. So what I won't do and what I will never do is try to sell you my book or sell you my message or get a bunch of thumbs ups and hearts and scribes and bells and dings and all this other stuff to try to sell somebody else's stuff and get paid for it. I won't do that. Now, I will tell you that this book and this message will have flaws, and it'll be wrong from time to time. But what I won't do is be dishonest. I won't lie. And the reason for that is this. Basically, the Supreme Court has a problem these days. That problem is, like all other problems, this colossal collapse of trust. It doesn't exist in nearly any of our institutions, in nearly any of our, these American sort of ideals rooted in fundamental trust. So, my pledge is that unlike the Supreme Court, see, the Supreme Court is messed up because of this one reason. It doesn't matter what Supreme Court took what thing when they shouldn't have. It doesn't matter if they take motor coaches or vacations or, go kill bear in Alaska on these hunting junkets. What matters is that it looks like they're being deceitful. And their own mandate says that just looking like you're being deceitful means you should, recuse yourself or not take part in those same activities and get your court in order to the point where the general public walking down the street, laying on the beach, climbing a mountain will trust you. But we don't. My message matters so much to me. I will not lie. I will not be dishonest. and I will not try to sell you stuff. Quickly. We don't take any issue with anybody going for it. We love going for it. Get your hearts, get your thumbs up, get your dings, get your likes, get your subs, I guess is the other one. That's beautiful. That's great. Sell your stuff. That's wonderful. I don't take any issue with that. I'm just saying, for me, for this message, for this time, it needs to be pure. And it costs me so much. I am willing to remove expedient personal gain out of the situation. Okay? Now, opportunity economy came to me after I was introduced to the opportunity zone. And for those that don't understand the opportunity zone, haven't heard about the opportunity zone, I try to give you a little brief idea of what it is and what's attached to it that makes it so compelling. Okay, so basically, the opportunity zone are physical tracts of land all over this country. When this program first started, it was about 8,700. Now I think there's like 7,300. And they're all over the country. And basically, if an investor invests in these opportunity zones, they get certain tax breaks. Okay? Now, we are not one of these folks that basically want to take this idea and say all tax breaks are bad, and we are essentially continuing to kind of perpetuate this income inequality. First off, the big tax incentive needs to be patient. And what I mean by patient, you don't get the big time tax incentive until you stay in that investment for 10 years. 10 years. Patient capital. It sits there. So, real estate developers, business owners, anyone who is interested in starting a business or developing real estate, commercial, industrial, whatever, it's all has a tax incentive attached to the actual physical tract of land, right? And so roughly there's about 33 million people living in opportunity zones. There's universities, there's hospitals, there's everything. Everything you could possibly imagine. Rural land, urban land, everything you could possibly imagine that exists in the United States exists inside of opportunity zones. Okay, 33 million people. All right. Well, we have essentially gotten to a place that common sense need not apply. If you have a common sense idea in this environment, you're going to be shouted down. Somebody else is basically going to make you or try to make you feel like a doofus for your idea. They'll minimize it, they'll minimize you, they'll marginalize you, they'll marginalize your idea. But that brings us to this point. And this is actually a point that's in the core tenets. And this is why I find myself here today. Opportunity economy is not based and does not recognize any political leaning. It's not that it sees left and it sees right or sees conservative or sees progressive and then makes a determination, the opportunity economy doesn't recognize any affiliation whatsoever politically. And this is why I'm here this morning, because there's another opportunity economy message that does have a particular leaning. And that's okay. That's not a problem. I don't take any issue with anybody, developing their message. But I also need to develop my message. I believe that this is a message that is well past its time. And when I was introduced to the opportunity zone, and then I started thinking about the world in big and complicated ways, I basically wanted to have somebody, anybody, there's a million ultra talented, super smart people out there that could have come up with this message, or at least I thought. And so I waited, and I'm like, here, these guys are going to figure it out. They're going to understand. They're going to, develop this same thing. But nobody did. Nobody did. And look, I'm not an academic, I'm not a writer, I don't do any of these things, so it was really, really, really hard just to get started. Just to get started writing a book. I'm a terrible writer. You'll see that if you get this book called Opportunity Economy. You'll see I'm not a great writer. But I did my best, and I know it's honest. And I never set out to write a flawless text, just something honest. The opportunity economy considers everybody on the planet. The opportunity economy challenges old ideas. The opportunity economy developed, alternative structures to hierarchical ones. The opportunity economy, has introduced formulas to help the individual think about value more deliberately. It's all here. And there are a lot of ideas in this text and in this message that don't and have never been articulated before. And I never knew this was going to happen. I had no idea that this is where I would be. It's been incredibly difficult. I'm not quite finished with the book. I've written it a few times. I got it copyrighted in 2022. And it's hard, right? So it's very difficult to think about the world in really, really, really big ways to help the individual. And all I can really do is put the message out, which I will be doing. This is installment 1. This is my introduction to the world, essentially. And I just plan on sharing the message and sort of elaborating and pontificating on what I wrote, and hopefully me talking about it will help me write about it and finish up the last part of what I've been working on, hopefully. I don't really know how I'm supposed to end, other than, this is, I don't know if I call it a channel or a talk or a tick or whatever, but this is how I've been instructed to try to get this message out. In addition to the book, in addition to, other things, I should be taking advantage of these platforms, apps, websites. I would encourage those who listen to go to the Economic Innovation Group and find out as much as you can about opportunity zones. I think I'll end with this quick story. Sean Parker is basically Napster, and he made a lot of money there, and he made a lot of money off Facebook, and he's a real big deal. Was in Tanzania and was struggling with this idea because didn't matter what money went there, there was not going to be long-term sustainable investment. And without long-term sustainable investment, then these areas that need the most help, these neighborhoods, these zip codes, these places on the map that are struggling the most, are not going to get a reasonable shot to become more economically viable. And so his idea when he got back to the States was, how can we create something that's long-term, that's sustainable, and that will give a real chance to having some of these economic issues and problems get better. And he met with Senator Booker, and he met with Senator Scott, and I don't know what else. I mean, he probably, mixed it up in a brew and came up with the Economic Innovation Group. And that's where I would encourage you to start if you have any interest at all. Because this message, opportunity economy, came from the opportunity zone. Because the opportunity zone is so big and so massive, in a data set of 33 million people, and a quarter of the land in the country, that really, really big things can be done. And this was under the Trump administration. This was a provision of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And it was, sponsored by Senator Booker and Senator Scott. And you can go back and listen that they're, from the podium, the Trump administration is trying to get people to get into the opportunity zone, to embrace it, to digest it. And that didn't really quite happen. It's not fully his idea. Obama basically had this thing called the Promise Zone, which is essentially the same thing, tax break for long-term investment. But, you have somebody like Mitch McConnell not even put up his Supreme Court people. He definitely ain't going to let them get any wins in, the economic realm. So nothing became of the Promise Zone. That thing was mitified disaster. And honestly, the opportunity zone has been flat too. For what it can be, for what it can do, it's pretty short. So, we'd like to get some interest in the opportunity zone. We'd like to get some interest in, ways to attract smart and patient capital into the opportunity zone, and get us back to taking risk. This country takes risk. We don't take any risk anymore. That's why we have all these nonsense investment instruments like CDOs and, other sort of disgusting, like, just icky financial crap. Where basically we're going to, eliminate risk and still have an outsized return. That's how we end up in these financial messes. But if we have real risk, right? We have real investment in these opportunity zones, in these businesses that can be, placed and grown inside of these opportunity zones, then maybe we can get a return to real risk, right? And, this is what is upsetting. We have a culture of risk. We have a culture of putting our stuff right on the line and letting whatever happens, but having faith in ourselves that we can get there. And maybe we don't get there this time, but this time is the building block for something that comes next, right? That's what we do. That's who we are. That is our culture. And so when we send our very best technology to China, their culture is to steal. It's an like an open secret, if that's a thing, right? It's like we don't really talk about it. We don't really, give it much airtime. But the culture is for them to take all that intellectual property and use it for themselves and develop it. But that's ours. That's ours. And because of all these nasty trade agreements, we essentially have, nobody really caring anymore that we send this stuff to China. Well, we could bring, at least in some part, the more valuable aspects of making stuff and manufacturing and all of this inside of an opportunity zone, because the tax incentive is so attractive that investors will be interested. They will be interested. And I just need for opportunity to be as important and as talked about as freedom, as liberty, as these other words that are so ingrained in our culture, right? And opportunity needs to be democratized, yeah? And this opportunity that we democratize needs to not be a one-off, right? We basically say, oh, we gave you an opportunity, you didn't get it. But we don't understand, like, generational conditioning. We really approach these things with a Pollyanna approach. And listen, if you're an investor and you got all the money in the world and you don't want to invest, that's okay. That's fine. But I think that people with a lot of money really, really want to fix stuff and really want to change life. and develop a higher quality of life for everybody. It's just that it's difficult because, you know, doing something on your own, there's not like this infrastructure, and there's not, you know, this coherent overall plan. And I believe that the Opportunity Zone gives us at least a ticket to that show. I didn't really know I was going to get so fired up. I don't always get fired up, but you know, I have been working on this for 4 years, and I don't share it with a lot of people. I've done everything that I can to make this message digestible, but we'll see. Again, my job's to share it, and that's what I'm going to do.